a kiss that melted hearts. Followed by tears that no one expected. What could have turned such a tender moment into something so emotionally charged? Sun Ye-jin breaks down in tears after Hyun Bin's kiss. What really happened in their personal lives? Was it just acting, or did something much deeper rise to the surface that day? Join us on Red Carpet Revealed as we uncover the hidden emotions, the private truths. In the moment that changed everything, the cameras stopped rolling, the lights dimmed slightly. Crew members shuffled quietly around the set, adjusting equipment and checking the monitor for playback. The director leaned forward in his chair, visibly satisfied. They had just filmed what would likely be the most emotional scene of the upcoming drama. A kiss that blended longing, regret, and restrained passion. Hyun Bin pulled back slowly, his hand still cradling Sun Ye-jin's face as the characters they embodied dissolved from reality for a moment. The silence was thick, almost sacred. And then it shattered. Sun Ye-jin turned away, trembling, and covered her face. Her shoulders quivered. At first, the crew thought she was simply deep in character. She had always been known for her raw emotional delivery, able to summon tears with frightening honesty. But this was different. She was sobbing. And it wasn't scripted. Hyun Bin stood frozen, uncertain whether to approach her. The makeup artist hesitated, clutching a powder compact in one hand. A sound technician slowly lowered his boom mic. All eyes turned to the actress, who, moments ago, had shared a heart-stopping on-screen moment with her real-life husband. No one said it out loud, but they all felt it. This wasn't acting. This was real. Their story was never simple. Long before their marriage, Sun Ye-jin and Hyun Bin were already icons in their own right, each commanding millions of fans, each fiercely private in matters of the heart. Met professionally for the first time in 2018, on the set of The Negotiation, where they shared little screen time but sparked undeniable chemistry during press events. Observers noticed something then, the way Sun Ye-jin would subtly glance at him during interviews, how Hyun Bin, usually guarded, smiled more often when she was near. When Crash Landing on You premiered in 2019, it wasn't just the story of a North Korean soldier and a South Korean heiress that captivated the public. It was the overwhelming emotional current between the two leads. The chemistry was so intense, so believable, that rumors of a real-life romance ignited almost immediately. They denied everything, politely, professionally. Every time a paparazzi photo surfaced, of them shopping at a supermarket, of a shared dinner, their agencies issued calm, clinical statements. They are just close colleagues. But fans weren't convinced. Neither were industry insiders. When Dispatch finally released a definitive report on January 1, 2021, confirming that Sun Ye-jin and Hyun Bin had been quietly dating for months, it wasn't a scandal. It was a celebration. Fans rejoiced. Media outlets scrambled to assemble timelines. Former co-stars offered cryptic congratulations. They were no longer just Korea's favorite on-screen couple. They were real, tangible, and perhaps, tragically, to live under the weight of public expectation. Their wedding in March 2022 was a fairy tale by every definition. Set in Aston House at the Grand Walker Hill Hotel, surrounded by cherry blossoms and security guards, it felt like a perfect ending. But no one talks about what comes after the perfect ending. As fairy tales fade. In the year following their marriage, actors seemed to drift apart, not publicly, not in the way tabloids would scream about, but emotionally, subtly, painfully. Hyun Bin returned to filming shortly after the honeymoon. Projects piled up. He flew overseas. Meanwhile, Sun Ye-jin, now a new mother, stepped away from the limelight. There were photos, always smiling, always beautiful. Behind the curated perfection, rumors of emotional distance began to grow. Ye-jin's absence from Hyun Bin's film premieres, his decision not to accompany her to certain family functions, moments where they seemed misaligned. Then came the drama, the new series where they'd act together again, an attempt, some speculated, to rekindle not just their on-screen magic, but something deeper. It was during the filming of that series, on a cold afternoon in the studio, that the infamous kiss was shot. And Sun Ye-jin cried. There were many things no one had ever asked them, because in Korea's celebrity culture, there are lines that even journalists fear to cross. No one asked Sun Ye-jin how she truly felt the night she first saw Hyun Bin with another actress. laughing on a red carpet before they had gone public. No one asked Hyun whether he had hesitated before committing to marriage. No one asked either of them about the emotional cost of loving someone in front of millions. But the answers live in the silences. Hesitation before an answer, in the tears that fall when the cameras are still rolling. According to an anonymous staff member who worked closely on the set, the emotional energy between the couple had shifted in recent months. They're still professional. They still smile, but there's distance. The staffer said quietly. It's like watching two people trying to remember how to love each other. And when Ye-jin cried, she didn't excuse herself from set. She stood there, shaking, as if lost in the very memory of a love story she once lived. To the world, Ye-jin is luminous, elegant, unshakably poised. But behind the grace lies a woman who has spent her entire adult life living in a lens, always adored, but rarely understood. Friends describe her as deeply introspective. Not cold, not guarded, just quiet in her suffering. She laughs easily but carries a weight few ever see. After her child was born, sources close to her noticed a subtle change, a soft fragility beneath her strength. She's always put others first, a longtime stylist revealed anonymously. She didn't complain when she had to return to filming earlier than expected, but you could tell. Her heart was heavy, being a new mother, being a wife to Korea's most beloved man, being an actress who's expected to keep glowing no matter what. The burden was invisible, but relentless, and somewhere in the midst of all that, she forgot to breathe, forgot to feel, until that kiss reminded her. On screen, they remained seamless. The chemistry never falters. But those closest to the production speak of a stillness between takes. A kind of emotional fog that settles when the director calls cut. They don't argue. They don't even seem cold. They just go quiet, said one assistant producer. Lunch breaks, Ye-jin often sits in her trailer with the curtains drawn. Hyun, meanwhile, reviews scripts or speaks with the crew. The warmth they once radiated, those unspoken looks, those shared jokes, has grown infrequent. Some think it's exhaustion, others believe it's restraint. But for those who have watched their love story unfold over years, this quiet is deafening. It's not the silence of comfort, it's the silence of distance. One late night, after filming wrapped early due to rain, Ye-jin remained on set. Most of the crew had left. Stood alone in front of a monitor, watching a playback of the kiss. When approached her, only one camera assistant, who happened to return for his forgotten charger, saw her silently wiping away a tear. She didn't look sad, he later whispered. She looked haunted. By what? A memory, a moment that reminded her of everything she thought she had let go? There's a theory among fans, half hope, half heartbreak, that the kiss had resurrected something. Not just a memory, but an ache. A realization. Their love, once vibrant and reckless, become careful and curated, and she missed the version of them that didn't belong to the world. To the public, Hyun and Ye-jin are a perfect, power couple. The dream, the embodiment of romantic destiny. But perfection is a prison. You can't falter, you can't doubt, you certainly can't fall apart, especially not when millions are watching. So they kept smiling, kept posting, kept posing for photos that the world would adore. But behind those photos was a woman asking herself if she was still seen, if her silence still mattered, if her husband still knew how to read her, not as a co-star, not as a national icon, but as the woman who once cried in his arms when no one else knew they were in love. And maybe, just maybe, Hyun was asking the same. Insiders say that 2 days after the emotional scene, Hyun asked to meet with Ye-jin alone, without staff, without their managers, without the script. They met in a small side room on set. No cameras, no audience. No one knows what was said. Those who passed by heard nothing but stillness. Two voices, low and intimate. At one point, someone walking past thought they saw Hyun gently place a hand on her shoulder, and her hand resting over his. When she emerged, her eyes were slightly red. But she smiled. For the first time in weeks. She smiled like someone who had remembered. How? Will they talk about it publicly? Or will there be a joint interview explaining her tears? Unlikely, because the truth of what happened between them, that delicate moment of emotional unraveling, is not something made for headlines. It's something sacred. Real love doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it collapses quietly behind studio walls. Sometimes, it shows up in a kiss that blurs fiction and reality. And sometimes, it breaks through the walls we build just to survive the pressure of a life not truly ours. That day, Ye-jin didn't just cry. He felt. And Hyun, who had held her so many times in scripts and scenes, stood still, perhaps realizing that this time, the woman in his arms wasn't acting. She was asking him to see her again. Final act. Where do they go from here? There is no tighter resolution. Not yet. They continue to film. Smiling. Professional. Poised. Something unspoken lingers in every glance, every movement. Fans watch more closely now. Theories multiply. Some believe this is just a rough patch, one they'll rise from stronger than ever. Others fear that they are slowly becoming strangers in the same spotlight. Only they know the truth. But perhaps, in the end, the question isn't what really happened in their personal lives. Maybe the real question is, can love survive when it no longer belongs to just two people?